So Missouri has decided that it's a great idea that people like me, consenting adults, should not be able to access medical care. Straight up. So we have been dealing with the articles this week, which are a series of articles by Studio Republic and the AP News, that the Governor General, Andrew Bailey, not the Bank of England Governor, the Attorney General of Missouri, has said that you need to have 3 years worth of therapy. You may not be autistic, you may not have other medical conditions, and you as an adult may not choose your own medical care. Can someone please explain to me why my existence is such a hateful thing to this man? Before I go off on one, let's hear what the other two people have to say. Cynthia.
Yeah, so here's yet another example of the constitutional conservation writing bills according to their own beliefs instead of medical science. They use the same modus operandi, saying, according to the companion article, Republicans have said they need to pass such legislation as a way to protect children, which is so interesting to me because depending on what subject matter we're talking about would be what they're saying that they're protecting children about, not even actually paying attention to the American Medical Association or other medical boards that actually have guidelines when it comes to transforming care to children, let alone adults. We're just going to go ahead and legislate because God said so. Actually, the Missouri Attorney General Bailey said that these are intended to protect all patients, to make sure that all patients have access to mental health services, and that all patients understand the experimental nature of the drugs. I just like to point out, puberty blockers are not experimental. I'll repeat one more time for the people in the back. Puberty blockers are not experimental drugs. Puberty blockers actually have been approved and used for the past 30, 1 to 30, 1 to 10, 20, 30 years. People, if you did not know that, well, let me go ahead and tell you. 1, 2, tree, as my grandmother would say, rest in peace, grandma. Yes, 30 years. They also actually treat other things, not just actually keeping from the body from actually developing, certain sexual organs as they actually traverse, but they treat endometriosis. They treat testicular cancer. They even treat breast cancer. So you're going to tell me we're going to go ahead and just completely ignore everything that the good things that puberty blockers do just because, as the English would say, a GP, or as we say here in America, a PCP would actually.
You and your bloody physicians.
I know. But we would actually prescribe these things to, and they're not like little children. Like, you have to be of the age, you can be of the age of consent or being able to actually have conversations by yourself when you are 12 years old in the United States. And also, there, like I said, there's a whole board of general practices that doctors actually follow from the board associations. We got plenty of them right here in America that will tell you exactly how to do gender affirming care. But what do we care about here in America when it comes to medical science? Screw that shit. Scott.
Yeah, Scott, what you gonna say? What you gotta say on that?
Well, first of all, when I read this story, it's just very frustrating, right? We're talking about treating human beings. I know this is kind of outside the box here thinking, but treating human beings as if they were human beings, for one thing. And so clearly that's an issue for some people. But even if you set aside all that information that Cynthia just dumped on us, what really motivates me to dig into this is I want to know what's the purpose, what's the point, what's the motivation behind this bill. Is it just an attitude towards gender identity? That's not the way things that they think they're supposed to be. So I did a little digging, and I found some Pew Research results, and it addressed, and this is the quote, this is their wording, by the way. They measured the percentage of U.S. adults who say that whether a person is a man or a woman is determined by sex at birth. And by sex at birth, I assume they mean they check out the genitals and they make their proclamation what this person is going to be for their life. And so here's some information for you. This is the percentage of U.S. adults who say that whether a person is a man or a woman, their wording again, is determined by sex at birth. For all U.S. adults in 2022, it was 60%, which is shockingly high. I would have thought it was much lower, but 60% of U.S. adults in 2022 think that you're locked in. Day one, you're locked in. 38% answered the former. However, when we start breaking it down by some demographics, we get some interesting patterns showing up here. And I'm sure this will shock nobody that's listening to this show. When we're talking about Protestants, the number goes up from 60% to 75%. They think your gender is locked in on day one, right? And even when we whittle it down even further to white evangelical U.S. adults, 87% versus 13% that think that it's not locked in on day one. Yeah.
Oh, more than 1 in 10 white evangelicals think that it's not locked in. That's amazing.
Well,
there's a number to work with there.
So there's some sunshine to be had here, apparently. So, but I did want, before we move on here, I want to throw out atheists, 24%, which is higher than I would have expected. 76% of atheists, of U.S. atheists in 2022, think that gender is not locked in on day one. So for most groups, the number that say gender is determined by sex at birth, the numbers have actually increased, which was surprising to me between 2017 and 2022. Those numbers went up a little bit during those years. Some of them had a little dip in the middle, but it seems like lately things have been increasing. So what we see here, though, is that there's clearly a connection between an American's religiosity and their viewpoint on this particular topic. What do y'all think?
Well, I think it's Missouri being Missouri, but I also think that skepticism and rationality of questioning play a large part in that, because you don't really associate questioning and trying to drill down into, meanings of things with, Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, or, Pentecostal Christianity or fundamentalist Islam. You don't really tend to think of those things as going hand in hand. Whereas with atheism, you tend to have either come from a place where you had no religion imposed on you at all, so it's never been a part of your life, or you have decided that, you have moved away from it, so you've done some form of questioning in and of yourself. But that's where I see this coming from. But getting back to Missouri itself, we have seen Missouri behave like this before over abortion. Missouri, with its admitting privileges laws, with its clinics away from schools laws.
It's Missouri. Missouri.
M.O.
You got to talk it right.
Right. You ain't talking it right. America, Phoebe.
Yeah, you wait till next week when, I get coronated. You'll be in trouble. The lot of you'll all be in trouble.
I believe it.
But anyway, the state that we are referring to with the 2-letter code MO seems to have an MO of, salami slicing one issue at a time. And this MO is now trans people. The previous MO was people seeking abortions or people providing abortions, because Missouri was one of the first states to try to go dark on abortions before the most recent ruling effectively outlawing abortion in a large number of states. So this is not a new thing. So Missouri seems to have given up on its, push against abortion because it thinks it's won. So now it's moving on to trans people. And it's moving in the same direction. So it's going after healthcare. It's going after doctors. It's going after individuals themselves. It's taking away individual rights. And this is what we need to be most concerned about, because they're going to go on this salami slice. And which is the next group they go after? Because Abortion rights, yes, that's a fairly obvious one that's been around since, people decided that, interfering in the person's right to choose their own bodily autonomy came there. And then more bodily autonomy gets attacked. So which bodily autonomy do we attack next, Cynthia?
Well, what you're describing basically is just like the MO, no pun intended, with Missouri of Operation Blitz that has been implored in Christian nationalism, which we talk about on the nonprofits ad nauseum. They are, and I mean mostly Christian nationalists, or as Cindy Plaza calls them, Christo-fascist. I kind of like that term, actually. I want to start using it a little bit more. But basically, this is an attack on any persons that do not fit what Christian nationalists think that is the good Christian American way. So that is trans people, that is LGBTQ people, that's women, that's minority groups. I mean, hell, we still are fighting for I don't know how long to get proper history taught in schools because we have dipshits like DeSantis, sorry guys, who want to ban AP African American history, which is nothing but history in the United States. So
it says it right there in the title.
Yeah. What the hell? So that's the thing is, this is definitely the whole, Operation Blitz thing that's going on, especially when it comes to trans affirming care. We even talk about the bathroom issue. We talk about the playing sports issue. And going forward and forward and forward and forward, like bullet point after bullet point after bullet point, to see like, okay, what terrible thing that I can do this week to make sure that my political agenda that matches my worldview actually passes. And this is exactly what we're seeing. Missouri's elected officials are just following suit. And I do apologize, everybody, for calling the governor of Florida a dipshit. I should say that he has dipshit-like qualities. Oh.
Scott, I've got something I'm going to ask you, Scott.
Sure.
Devil's advocate with me.
Okay.
Defend this action by the Attorney General of Missouri to me, a trans person. Defend it.
What about the children, right? What about the children? They're doing irreversible, regrettable damage to their bodies, right? Isn't that the main thing? Isn't that it's all about the kids.
Babies, just the babies. You got to protect the babies.
So where's the evidence base for all these children that are being pushed through irreversible changes? Where are these children?
I got the evidence. You got the evidence? I got the evidence.
I have some evidence. Thank you, Phoebe, for asking. It's almost as if you knew I had some evidence waiting to pop out here. I did a little digging, okay, and so the motivation is how common is transgender treatment regrettable or detransitioning or dangerous or harmful, right? And so I found this on AP News. This was about how common is transgender treatment regrettable and detransitioning. Dutch research from several years ago found no evidence of regret in transgender adults who had comprehensive psychological evaluations in childhood before undergoing puberty blockers and hormone treatment. Some studies suggest that rates of regret have declined over the years as patient selection and treatment methods have improved. And here's the kicker. In a review of 27 studies involving almost 8,000 teens, children, and adults who had transgender surgeries, mostly in Europe, the US, and Canada, 1% on average expressed any form of regret. And for many of them, it was a temporary regret, but a small number of them went on to have detransitioning or reversal surgeries. And so we're talking about a fraction of individuals who undergo these kind of medical changes having regret and wanting to switch back.
We're within the margin of error of having no statistical regret at all.
Well within the margin of error, I would have to say.
Well within the margin of error. So
Yes.
here's the thing that people don't like to hear. Cancer is treated aggressively. Cancer has a 20 to 30% regret rate. Knee surgery has up to 50% regret rates in England. 50% of people that get some form of corrective knee surgery will regret it because it didn't improve their life.
That's more. That's more than 1%.
So here's the thing. Missouri, please, everybody who wants knee surgery needs to have 50 times more psychological treatments with their counselor. They need to have 50 times more screening for mental health conditions, 50 times more autism screenings, and then I will accept that you are ready for the medicine. But until that time, I would like Scott to hold up bigotry duck. Because that is what you are doing. So,
Quack indeed.
Does anybody want to try to defend this a little bit more to me, Cynthia?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, sure. See, the evidence is in Jesus. You understand, Phoebe. See, the thing about it is that you're not reading your Bible right, okay? Because, and obviously you are not also watching Mr. Rogers right, because when he wrote, "What do you do with the mad that you feel?" the last line was where a boy can be, well, girl can grow up to be a woman and a boy can be a man. So obviously that Mr. Rogers and the Bible are right and you are wrong. Take that, atheist.
Mr. Rogers.
Yes.
I feel like I've walked into an episode of Ozarks here.
Yeah, that's the argument from Mr. Rogers, if you all didn't
Have I walked into an episode of Ozarks here or something?
Maybe.
It's like a weird episode of Ozarks.
The Ozarks are in Missouri. Just saying.
This is why I say that. that geographic reference was not lost on. Have I walked into an episode of Ozarks here? I mean, but
Phoebe, you're just operating on another level. You're operating on another level. We just can't.
This is because the Attorney General of Missouri is somewhere here, and then he came up against me, and then realized that it wasn't just me. It wasn't really a fair fight because whenever you face me, it's me and my ego. But before I, finish with my final rant, do either of you two have anything that you would like to say to the wonderful humans that have written this, and to the wonderful people who are pushing this?
I certainly do. I certainly do.
People like myself who are trans in this world.
So the whole idea is that it's about protecting, right? There's outrage and resistance and efforts being made to stop these horrible, permanent changes being made to people's own bodies. And so naturally, there must be other things that do this similar kind of changes to an individual, that there should be an equal amount of offense, right? Like, for example, gastric bypass or gastric band surgery, right? That's when you they reduce the size of your stomach by wrapping this band around it, and it's going to prevent you from eating too much. Here's the lowdown on gastric band surgery. Gastric bands are not yet approved by the FDA for use on anyone under the age of 18 or younger. Okay, so that's a relief. Although the surgery is still done, commonly done, in fact. But there's not enough research yet to know on how it may help or harm teens, although some studies suggest that weight loss surgery can improve the health of obese teens. They're making change. What if they regret? What if they would rather not have that gastric band surgery? What if they wish that they had never done that? Okay, they're doing permanent changes to their body. Tubal ligation, okay? Tubes tied, getting your tubes tied. There's no legal age requirement for getting your tubes tied in the United States. That will sterilize the individual who has it done. Isn't that part of what's being worried about here? Isn't that part of the problem? No offense, no outrage, no challenges. Missouri does not have any bills in the works for outlawing tubal ligation, even though it does exactly or very similar type of permanent changes to an individual.
Well,
I don't know. I don't get what the pushback is. We see that there's a religious connection, and that the arguments that they're putting forth are empty, are vacuous. And so I don't know. I would be curious. I'm legitimately curious. What is the real problem?
well, the NACL has not written a bill yet, Scott, against tubalization or gastric bypass surgery. For a person who actually had gastric bypass surgery, I didn't have the ban, I had another surgery. It, I don't know, saved my life. So I definitely need the NACL to lead that
Are you
shit
sure
alone.
you didn't regret it later
No,
on? I mean,
no,
you didn't,
yeah,
no
yeah,
regret?
yeah,
No.
no,
Okay.
no. I don't regret that. I don't regret that I did it.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I encourage other people who happen to be older, who may have like some issues, especially when it comes to exercising and things of that nature. If you need a tool to help you lose weight, that's something to look into. Not telling you to do it, but it's definitely something to look into. But I didn't
This
regret doing
episode
mine.
does not constitute medical advice. If you have medical questions, please consult your own individualized
Exactly.
medical advice.
You're right. Exactly. Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, please look into that with your own medical provider, not necessarily Cynthia McDonald. So, but one of the things that I did want to point out before Phoebe does her last rant is that this particular bill itself may not necessarily go through because we have a companion bill per se in the Senate that is less shitty. However, one of the things that it does say in both bills is that the Missouri House bills ban inmates and prisoners from accessing gender affirming care and gender affirming surgeries specifically, and this is really bad. It would end coverage of any gender affirming treatments for Missouri patients on Medicaid, the federal health insurance program, and which is for a person who actually works with people who are on Medicaid, like a lot of times that's the only way that they're able to actually get any type of care, medical care, period. And it's because they don't have, they may not necessarily have a job where it would, or even they may not necessarily have enough income in order for them to be able to get insurance from the marketplace. So to know that in Missouri, they're actually talking about taking this care away from people who are at or below the federal poverty line is actually egregious. And and so again, I just want to just necessarily say that this is just another example of Christo fascist Operation Blitz, NACL, National Association of Christian Legislators, bullshit that is going to definitely cause issues. Take it away, Phoebe.
So, I, a white British person, am a lesser person in the state of Missouri, according to the Attorney General of Missouri, because my gendered identity does not match up with the narrow-minded, self-absorbed, narcissistic, egomaniacal crap that is coming out of this man's mouth. We, as a society, must do better. Why is it that the poorest in society are the ones that are attacked the most? Those on Medicaid are the poorest in society, and why should they not get the medical treatment that somebody like myself, who earns a decent amount of money and is not on Medicaid, can access? Why is that a barrier? And why am I, just for existing, somebody that has now been decided that I could have medical treatment taken away from me that will lead to my death? Why are you killing me, Missouri? And why are you killing other trans people, trans children? You want to protect children? Ditch these attacks on trans people, and you will save the lives of children. At the moment, you are killing trans children. And until you wake up and realize that, you will forever be remembered in the same breath as Jim Crow.